Is Jojo Romero actually a good fit for this Mariners team, or does he not really fit at all? I'm going to cover that question today on this episode of Mariners Daily. Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Edwards. Thanks so much for joining me on this episode of the show. Please subscribe if you enjoy daily Mariners content. And if you are returning, if you have been watching the show, I really appreciate it. And yeah, just lock in, baby. Subscribe already. What are we doing here? All right, let's get into the first point here. Yoan Moncada has signed with the Los Angeles Angels for 1 year, $4 million. Moncada was a guy that I have talked about a couple of times throughout this offseason. He was, yeah, I think a serious option for us. And maybe he doesn't fully fit our roster necessarily. It just he does play third base, which is great. Now, if you just see him as a DH, then I totally get it that he would not fit on this team because we already have a nice lefty hitting DH option, whether you're looking at Canzone starting in right field and or at DH, or whether you're looking at Luke Raley starting right field or DH. Now, I thought one of those guys was probably going to get traded this offseason. Neither one of those happened. Looks like they're ready to go with a platoon in right field and a platoon at DH. And that means that you don't really have too much space for Moncada unless you're willing to start him at third base, which he was terrible defensively at third base this past season. Limited time, only 289 plate appearances. He was injured for most of the first half, only played 36 games before the All-Star break due to a right thumb sprain and inflammation in his right knee, which kept him out of action for, majority of the first half. So once he was finally on the field, we saw a much improved Yoan Moncada, one that I was not expecting to see on the Angels this year. Like I said, 289 plate appearances, 12 home runs, but a very good 11.1 walk percentage, which is great to see. A 26 K percentage, which we've seen him succeed with before throughout his career. A 214 isolated power, which is the biggest key here, in my opinion, the power returning. He hit 234 with a 336 on base and a 448 slugging percentage, a 339 WOBA, a slightly worse 323 expected WOBA, 117 runs created plus, which basically means he was 17% better than the average hitter in the major leagues this past season. A 14.3 barrel percentage, 43.4 hard hit percentage. Those are great key stats for Moncada to see that power is returning. Am I disappointed that we missed out on him? Yes, we need someone. We need somebody else at third base besides Ben Williamson, in my opinion. And the lefty hitter in Moncada would have been great. Obviously, if he doesn't work out, it's only a 1 year, $4 million deal. You're not taking any risk at all. $4 million is less than what I thought he was going to get. Honestly, I thought it'd be 1 year deal with a player option, maybe, I, I'm surprised. I thought he was going to get at least like 10 mil this year, but not in the cards apparently. And for 1 year, 4 mil, I totally would have taken Moncada. Absolutely. I mean, and I would love to hear what your guys' opinion is. Do you think he fits on this team? He was terrible defensively, but you have Williamson who's really good on defense, so like I feel like they would have been kind of a good pair, but maybe we don't have room for. I don't know. We need another infielder. Um, I don't know, man. Maybe we just go in-house and we see who's better, Rivas or Bliss in spring training. Either one could be an option. The biggest key with Moncada as well, not only with the defense, but the contact percentage. This past season, it was a 71.3 contact percentage, which is just not great. And he was hitting the ball very hard, and he does walk a lot, which those are great skills that we've seen translate season to season, but he just doesn't make a whole lot of contact. So a 234 batting average over 289 plate appearances, maybe that's not going to come up. Maybe that's not going to improve over a full season, or maybe it will. I don't know. But with the contact percentage this low, makes me feel like the the floor is still there. We still have the floor. But even so, you're paying 1 year, $4 million. We can't do that. Like, listen, man, I'm trying not to get too frustrated, with the Mariners this offseason. As I see everyone online, everybody in the comments, like, listen, man, I get it. I get it. It's a frustrating offseason for sure. For a team that is in this position to not be willing to invest more in this team, even if we had to pay 1 year $5 million. Let's say Moncada really wanted to go back to the Angels for some reason. Obviously, I think he would rather play for the Mariners, but who knows? We have a tough ballpark, so like I get it, but also at the same time, I don't get it if the Mariners were right there with a one year $4 million deal, which we've seen no report of. So I have no reason to believe that they were involved at all. Mancada, he's not like the end all be all. He never was, but like he is a key player and he was always like a fallback option in my mind if we couldn't go get a Ketel Marte, if we couldn't go get a Brendan Donovan, Nico Hoerner, whatever it is, a top player that we deserve to go get. Or bring back Jorge Polanco. The list goes on. There was a lot of guys at the beginning of this offseason that were options, and now we're sitting here looking at freaking Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, and still Brendan Donovan. So I don't know. I get the frustrations. I get it. We're all frustrated to a certain extent. Moncada's not the end all be all, but he would have been nice. Would have been nice. Let's get to our player profile here. I'm talking about Jojo Romero. Finally, I've seen Mariners fans talk about this dude for all offseason pretty much. As soon as Donovan's name came up in trade discussions, it was like, and let's pair him with Jojo Romero, which I understand. He is on the last year of his deal. He's 29 years old, not getting paid too much. Solid lefty reliever out of the pen. Let's go through the stats here, and then I'll talk about the overall fit with the Mariners. 61 innings pitched, a 21.6 K percentage, a fairly high 11.4 walk percentage. Okay, keep that in the back of your head. 0.30 home runs per nine. That's crazy. That is like insanely low. 269 BABIP, which is also a little low, not bad. 75.8 left on base percentage, and a 54.5 ground ball percentage. That's fantastic. And it's all because of the sinker, which is his second most used pitch. 2.07 ERA this past season and a 3.28 FIP. That's fairly nice as well. This was definitely a breakout season for Romero. He throws his slider majority of the time. He's a lefty reliever. Just a note, if you didn't know, lefty reliever throws his slider 38 overall, 38% of the time, but he throws it 59% of the time versus left-handed batters. So not too much versus righties. He throws it majority versus lefties. It is a solid pitch. It's a solid pitch through and through. It has a nice 30.5 O swing percentage, a very good 66.5 strike percentage. You don't see that too often on a slider, that high of a strike percentage. The swinging strike percentage is nice, not amazing. It's 14.8, which is fantastic. And then the called strike percentage, once again, it's a great called strike pitch. 23.9 called strike percentage. That's crazy. The average for a reliever with a slider, the average slider called strike percentage is 14.3% for relievers this past season. That's crazy. And he's getting a 23.9%, basically 24%, almost 10% higher than the average MLB reliever. That's great. Great slider. Good whiff percentage, 34%, and a really good WOBA, an expected WOBA. It gets good results, which is great to see. It's a good pitch. The slider is a nice pitch. The sinker is an interesting one. It it gets ground balls. It does, but it's still not that effective, I would say. And it's more about just getting strikes for him. He throws it 32.4% of the time. Majority of the time is versus righties, but not entirely. Those at 37% of the time versus righties. 93.7 miles an hour. Nothing crazy there. It's not a Jose Ferrer type guy. But it's nice. The strike percentage is very nice, 69.8%. However, and the called strike percentage is good, 30%, which is more than above average for an MLB reliever this past season. The average for a sinker, the average called strike percentage for a sinker, 21.5% this past season. He's at 30.5. So fantastic there. However, the pitch gets hit, man. It's a 350 woba and a 399 expected woba, and it's consistently been hit as well. This is not an outlier by any means. So that's not great. He's got a very good changeup, which is great. Throws it 22% of the time. Majority of the time, it's versus right-handed batters. That is his pitch for righties is the changeup, and he really needs to figure out something else. He also has a four-seam fastball, which he only throws about 6% of the time. So that's not much. He needs another weapon versus righties, and I'm thinking maybe a cutter could be in store. Like if the Mariners go out and get him, then obviously then we got him and we gotta work with him and figure out what we could do. And I think maybe a cutter versus right-handed batters, maybe that could be an option. If you guys have any other thoughts about what pitches he could kind of work in, because he's had the sinker for a while. It's not an amazing pitch. It gets you by, but throwing it 32% of the time is just not optimal in my opinion. I think lowering that by a good 10% at least would be my uh would be optimal in my opinion, and maybe adding a cutter to that mix would be that answer. Anyways, let's talk about the changeup for a second. It's fantastic. It goes at 38% of the time versus righties, which is great. And yeah, it's just a great pitch through and through. Good O swing percentage at 31%. Fairly low strike percentage though. It's not a strike getting pitch. It is a swing and miss soft contact pitch. 14 swinging strike percentage, not an amazing CSW, but the WOBA and expected WOBA are fantastic at 230 and 262 respectively. And then we've got the ground ball percentage, which is absolutely insane. 65.7 ground ball percentage on the changeup. The average for an MLB reliever this past season was 50.7 on a changeup this past year. That's crazy. 15% higher than the average reliever. This changeup is a good pitch, and it just gets soft contact through and through. Long story short, he is not a swing and miss guy. The slider does do a lot of the heavy lifting there. Like I said, it's a good swinging strike pitch. It's a good called strike pitch. It's just a good pitch overall. Does not get hit hard, all of that. So, slider is a great building block. The sinker is not great. He just needs another pitch that's going to get him strikes because he's leaning on the sinker too much as of right now. For to be your second most used pitch and it gets a 350 WOBA, that's a little scary. Also, do the Mariners need him necessarily? That's kind of what had me interested with the Jojo Romero comments. I think it made sense, but then you get Jose Ferrer and you're like, I don't need another lefty reliever. And I get it. There's a lot of great lefty hitters out there. Shout out Yordan Alvarez, who might be healthy this season. Like, oh my gosh. There's a lot of lefty batters that we're going to be uh, needing guys in the pen for. But we've got Spire and we've got Ferrer. I think those guys are perfect and also can get righties out as well. I don't think we necessarily need a guy like Romero. He scares me a little bit. His control, the walk percentage is a little high. The control is not bad necessarily. He just doesn't have the second strike getting pitch. He's got the slider and he has the sinker, which is a strike getting pitch. Like I said, 69.8% is great on, in a vacuum, but it also gets hit. It gets hit hard. So you don't want it in the zone. And if you do it, you got to throw it less. You got to throw it less. So maybe a cutter could be in store. Maybe if they introduce that cutter, it could play off the slider and the sinker. So I think if you could lower that sinker usage to maybe around 20% or so, I think that would make it a lot more effective, because you could throw it when you need a strike, and hopefully batters aren't expecting it. If you could get a cutter going that has a decent strike percentage, at least, you know, 60%, if we get a 60 strike percentage cutter, that and with getting a little bit less hard contact than the sinker is, that would be optimal. I think that's what your game plan would have to be if you go get Jojo Romero, or you just roll with him as a lefty specialist. And in that case, I'm not super interested if he's just a lefty specialist. We've got guys that can get lefties out. We don't need another guy like Jojo Romero. Now, however, all this with an asterisk. Asterisk? Yeah, that's it. Uh If he's my only option, give me Jojo Romero. I've talked about Carlos Vargas before. I've talked about other relievers. You guys seem to like the Michael Kopech option. I think he's a great option. I think Evan Phillips could be another great option coming off injury. Um, I think those guys could be really good. I would prefer another like power righty personally, but if we're not going to go get anybody else and we go get Jojo Romero, if it happens to be with Brendan Donovan, then I'm down, totally down. But 1 year of Jojo Romero does not get me excited whatsoever, and I don't really see that as a Mariner move, especially in the offseason. And I think a lot of you guys have pointed out the good point of the Mariners do wait for the trade deadline, and they wait to give their guys a little bit of leeway because they don't want to spend the money. And then when the deadline hits and they're still in the race, then they buy in, um, which is a little frustrating for me because obviously I want the guy before then. But yeah, that's just the way it is. So let me know what you guys think about Jojo Romero. Everybody seems to be hyped about him. I'm not overly hyped about him, but I'm also not mad if we go get him. I don't think he necessarily fits super perfectly on this team. I would rather a lot of other relievers personally. If you love him, I would love to know why. Is it because of the slider? I get it. But yeah, he just needs another pitch. He needs another pitch versus righties, in my opinion, to be a complete reliever. Now, but like, and lefty specialists are just like less popular these days. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Either way, let me know what you guys think. And yeah, we'll get into the next point here. The Yankees have signed Cody Bellinger to a 5 year, $162 million deal. My question here is he worth it? Is he worth this deal? Let's get into the details here. 5 years, $162.5 million. There's an opt out after the second season, and after the third season, it is very front loaded as well, just to make a note of that. He's an interesting player. He's a very interesting player. Obviously came up with the Dodgers, was super effective, then just hit a freaking wall 2020, 2021, 2022, then gets signed by the Chicago White Sox to a 1 year deal. Or no, a 3 year deal, actually. Was it a 3 year deal? I can't remember if it was 1 year, 17 mil, I think it was, with the Chicago White Sox to start off. Has a great season, goes out to the free agent market, the doesn't get what he was looking for, really. So he comes back with the Chicago White Sox in 2024 and does fine. He did fine. It was over 500 plate appearances, 18 homers, 9 stolen bases. Not amazing. He doesn't strike out a whole lot, though. He hit 266 with a 325 on base and a 426 slugging percentage, which is a 108 runs created plus 2.1 F4 on the season. Still decent defense in the outfield, but nothing amazing. So he gets shipped over to the Yankees. Um, it was a 3 year deal. So he had signed the 1 year deal with the Chicago White Sox for the 2023 season. Then it was 2024. He goes on the free agent market, tries to get the big deal, doesn't, gets a 3 year deal with the Chicago Cubs. I was about to say White Sox, the Chicago Cubs, and then it had an opt out. Or no, did it have an opt out? Yeah, it must have. And then he gets traded over to the Yankees for the 2025 season. And then he turns it around. Then he does everything this season. Over 600 plate appearances, 29 homers, 13 stolen bases. The power emerged. A 207 isolated power is the key stat here. Uh, and there's one other key stat as well, but let's get to the slash line. 272 batting average, 334 on base, 480 slugging. He's not an amazing player, but he's just a very solid player. 125 runs created plus, 4.9 F4 on the season. That is a key point, and it's mainly due to his defense in center field, left field, right field. Kind of put him anywhere you want. He can also play first base if you want him to, but the Yankees won't be, I don't think, playing him at first base. Will they be playing him at first base? Actually, he might be playing first base for the Yankees. That kind of devalues him, in my opinion. Is he worth the 162? I don't know. The key with Bellinger, especially if you pull up the Savant page, you're going to see a lot of not super hard contact, and he has been overperforming his expected WOBA for a long time, especially when he does well. This past season was a 347 WOBA. It's a 322 expected WOBA. I think he's a guy that can get away with that because he makes so much contact. It's a 90.6 zone contact percentage. That means that the majority of the 90% of the time he swings at a pitch in the zone, he makes contact. That's fantastic. 84 overall contact percentage is fantastic. 84.2 contact percentage for Bellinger is top, at least top like 18 in baseball. And he's also tied with Josh Naylor from this past season with an 84.2 contact percentage. And we all love Josh Naylor. So, I wanted to make that point. He makes really good he makes a lot of contact and he knows how to pull the ball and take advantage of the launch angle. That's how you see a guy that hits 29 home runs, and especially being at Yankee Stadium, that helps quite a bit as well. But it just means that he doesn't have as much leeway, in my opinion. He does not naturally hit the ball very hard. The hard hit percentage, the barrel percentage, the exit velocity, none of those numbers have been fantastic except for early in his career, very early, like first 5 years or so. So, listen, he's 30 years old. I'm kinda curious because, 5 years, 162. We saw Bregman, at 32 years old get 5 years, 175. We saw Schwarber at 33 years old get 5 years, 150. Those are both guys that generally I don't know, I think the Bregman comparison versus Cody Bellinger is really interesting. Um, I feel like Bellinger may have misread the market possibly, and I think the batted ball metrics has teams, very scared, and he has shown, like I said, just a year ago, a 108 runs created plus, 2.1 F4 with the Cubs. He has shown the propensity to, have these high highs and then dip down very quickly. So, he's a guy that takes advantage of launch angle. He's a guy that takes advantage of pulling the ball. I don't know if he's worth it. I'd be curious to see what you guys have to say. Is he worth 5 years, 162? I think he's worth it to the Yankees. I think they need a guy like Cody Bellinger. I think he's worth it to them. I don't know if he's worth it in general, if that makes sense. If that makes sense. The Mets have made a another huge trade. They've continued this ridiculous offseason that they've had so far, missing out on, a lot of guys from off their roster. Edwin Diaz, Pete Alonso, chief among them, trading away longtime Met and Brandon Nimmo. Now they've traded for a top pitcher in Freddie Peralta and Tobias Myers, who's kind of a mid reliever. Four top prospects in shortstop Jet Williams, 22 years old. He's probably going to start the year in AAA, but is on the back end of MLB, or sorry, I think it's Baseball America's top 100 prospects. Brandon Sproat is another prospect, a pitcher going to the Brewers, a little bit older than Jet, but ready to impact the majors. Just had his first taste of the majors this past season. Peralta, obviously one of the top pitchers in the game, honestly, and I didn't really expect to say that at the end of this year. 162 innings, 176 innings, sorry, 176 innings this past season for Peralta, a 28K percentage. That is his bread and butter. He's got the fastball, he's got the slider, he's got a dope changeup that he can throw to lefties or to righties. The walk percentage is not terrible at 9.1. It's a little bit high, and it always has been, but he gets away with it because of the K percentage. It's the homers that are the problem, and he kept it in check this past season. 1.07 home runs per nine. That's fantastic. The BABIP is a little low, 243. We'll see how that ages. The left on base percentage might be a little high, 85.5%. I think both of those kind of inform the FIP that we are seeing. It's a 2.70 ERA, which is fantastic, but the 3.64 FIP might tell a slightly different story. He might be just a little bit worse than what we've seen from this past year, but 3 straight years of at least like 160 innings pitched, quality innings. He steps into the top of that rotation that desperately needed it. Once again, I think this might be worth it for the Mets, and it's also worth it for the Brewers because Jet Williams, Brandon Sproat, highly regarded prospects. Like I said, top 100 prospects. Jet Williams is a top shortstop. I'm curious to see what he can do. He got his first taste of AAA this past season and did not perform very well. Spent majority of the time in AA and then gets promoted to AAA. Did not perform super well in his first taste. So I'm curious to see how he ages going forward. And like I said, Sproat is interesting, and the Brewers are always interesting with a young pitcher. I'm always curious to see what they're going to do and how he's going to improve and what they're going to do to his arsenal, basically. Good for the Mets. They've kept the foot on the gas. They pursued the top guy in Kyle Tucker. Fell a little bit short. I get it, to the freaking Los Angeles Dodgers. What a ridiculous contract. but they keep the foot on the gas pedal. They go get Bo Bichette, they go get Freddie Peralta, they go trade for Luis Robert. Th- Good offseason so far for the Mets. Hats off to them. And listen, man, they're just a team. There's just another team that make the Mariners look a little bit worse. Yeah, they're a team that it's hard not to be frustrated for what the Mariners have done and what they haven't done this offseason. So let me know your guys' thoughts. This is a longer episode than usual. I don't know. I'm been getting on a roll here. So let me know your guys' thoughts on Moncada, on Jojo Romero. Cody Bellinger, is he worth that deal? Or is Bregman totally overpaid? Is Schwarber overpaid? You know, let me know about those guys, and the Mets have kept the foot on the gas pedal. What's a deadline deal, I guess, that the Mariners could do? I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'll see you back tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good one.